Thanks for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. We take a closer look at President Moon Jae-in's ambitious plans for Korea to get a head start in the fourth industrial revolution. Hong Kong's housing boom may be running out of steam, as experts say prices there seem to have decoupled with the real economy. These stories and more coming right up. But first, longtime bureaucrat and Aju University President Kim Dong-yeon has been tapped as the country's next deputy prime minister and finance minister on Sunday. The nominee, who spent more than a decade at the nation's budget office, said fiscal policies should play a more active role in reviving the economy, and added that his team would draft a supplementary budget after his official appointment. Kim also said managing internal and external risks and job creation are some of his short-term priorities. Separately, he said he will try to extend a bilateral currency swap deal with China, which expires in October. Korea University professor Chang Ha-sung has also been tapped as chief of staff for policy, who is expected to push for reforms on Korea's family-run conglomerates, also known as chaebols. President Moon Jae-in has long been vocal about the need to expand government support for the nation's technological development even before he was elected. And today we take a closer look at his vision for the future, especially when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution. Here's our Yoon Shin with more.
Artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, drones, and much more to come. Since the concept was first introduced at the Davos meeting of World Economic Forum last year, the fourth industrial revolution, combining digital and biological systems, has been quickly taking off in countries around the world. South Korea is also bracing itself for the new era, and its new president Moon Jae-in has long been urging the nation to get a head start so it can find a new growth engine. And at the heart of those plans is a new committee dedicated to the fourth industrial revolution.
4차 산업혁명의 준비에 국가의 모든 역량을 모아야 합니다. 대통령 직속 4차 산업혁명위원회를 만들어서 4차 산업혁명을 직접 밑받침하겠습니다.
Under President Moon's Smart Korea initiative, government and private experts on the committee will work to create that platform for both market growth and technological development.
Under the previous administration, the ministry dedicated to software and technological development gave a rather disappointing performance due to the relevant powers or roles being divided across other organizations. The fourth industrial revolution requires a platform on which artificial intelligence and big data can share information and communicate with each other. Unless we're talking about a global mega conglomerate, no one else can provide this. So it's an ideal project for the government.
Moon plans to put more money into pure science research, along with the key industries working on electric vehicles, renewable energy, 3D printing, robotics, and more. On top of that, he wants to cut red tape to make more room for innovation. It's not yet clear how many of these promises will translate into actual policy, since Moon's been in office for less than 2 weeks. But startups are asking for specific, detailed policies under which they can develop their original ideas. A co-founder of one startup came up with this automated system allowing users to reserve parking spots and pay for gas through their phone. He says startup-focused policies are what will determine how far the nation can go in the new era.
Hyperconnectivity is at the core of the new industrial revolution. But when it comes to collaboration within the industry, conglomerates have a leg up, often stealing ideas from small businesses. So detailed regulations are urgently needed. And though Korean firms can quickly turn an idea into a product, the market provides a relatively constrained environment compared to the US or China. So market expansion is also needed in the long run.
A solid platform for the automation of the future will be key to enabling Korea to make things more efficiently and outsell its competitors in terms of advanced digital products on the global market. But the direction the new administration is headed comes with some concerns over sacrificing jobs to efficiency. Many experts agree this is a genuine concern, and it's up to the new government to minimize the damage.
Robotics and automation save money for companies and boost production, but they also replace human labor across industries. The government needs to come up with solid education policies to help people get jobs that can't be replaced by artificial intelligence, or prepare them for the positions that are expected to be created through the fourth industrial revolution.
It's estimated some 7.5 million job positions will disappear globally, while up to 3 million new ones will be created through the fourth industrial revolution. Helping Koreans claim as many of those positions as possible is what the new administration should prioritize over the next 5 years of rapid change.
Bloomberg labeled South Korea the most innovative economy of 2017. And although some experts say the nation, often called a tech giant, hasn't quite lived up to its reputation for the past few years, with the newfound stability in government, its firm determination, and its promising game plan for industrial transformation, there are high hopes that the country can find a new way through the coming revolution and outperform its competitors. Yoon-shin, Business Daily.
Foreign investors lifted sentiment in the Korean equity market in the first session of the week, and most blue-chip stocks were up, driving up the Kospi. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about overall stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-seok.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market close on the first day of the week?
The Kospi market showed a strong footing in the first session of the week, while the Kosdaq was mostly flat. The Kospi rose by 0.68% to close at 2,304.303, and the Kosdaq followed with a 0.03% uptick to close at 642. On the Kospi market, foreign investors were the only net buyers. However, they bought almost the same amount of shares unloaded by both retail investors and institutions. By size, most blue-chip stocks, including Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, and POSCO, enjoyed intraday gains. In particular, the share prices of POSCO surged by around 5% during the session, helped by expectations for rising steel prices. Foreign investors, including Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, and UBS, bought shares of the company.
Now, despite foreign investors buying massive amounts of shares, political uncertainty from the U.S. still acted as a negative catalyst in the global markets. So what market events should investors keep in mind on that front?
The so-called risk appetite throughout global financial markets still remains sluggish due to concerns over the potential impeachment of U.S. President Donald Trump. And that's why in the near term, global investors are expected to keep a close eye on developments surrounding the Trump administration. President Trump is on his first overseas trip from Saudi Arabia. He will be heading over to Israel and the Vatican. And in the latter part of the week, he will attend the G7 summit, which will take place in Italy. During all this, investors will likely to pay close attention to his comments and other developments.
Now, given the political uncertainty in the markets, what other events should investors take a closer look at this week?
The focus of this week is expected to move toward global monetary policies again. First, the U.S. Federal Reserve will release the minutes of the latest FOMC meeting on Wednesday local time. Since many experts are projecting another interest rate hike in June, investors will be eager to get hints from minutes of the May FOMC. CME Fed Watch, a futures market betting on future rate hikes, now shows a 78.5% possibility of a hike in June. Fed officials who will deliver speeches throughout this week might also make comments on a potential rate hike in June. The list includes Fed Governor Lael Brainard on Tuesday, Chicago Fed President Charles Evans on Wednesday, St. Louis Fed President James Bullard, and San Francisco Fed President John Williams on Friday.
Now, the Bank of Korea will also hold its monetary policy meeting this week. So what are the expectations on that so far?
The BOK monetary policy meeting will be on Thursday, and experts are definitely leaning toward an interest rate freeze for 11 consecutive months. Since it will be the first meeting after a new president took office, experts think the BOK will not make as sudden policy changes. Moreover, President Moon Jae-in's pledge to boost the country's economy through fiscal, not monetary policies is another reason the BOK is not likely to pull the trigger. Interestingly, another focus of this week's meeting is whether the BOK signals potential rate hikes going forward. If economic indicators in Korea maintain the current positive trend and the Moon administration quickly revise the country's economy, the BOK will need to cool off potential overheating in the economy by raising interest rates. In fact, BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol said after last month's meeting that the bank sees less need to cut rates further, signaling more a flexible approach going forward.
Now, the OPEC meeting will be another important factor affecting sentiment in the commodity market, right?
That's right. Whether oil producers in the world will reach an agreement on production cuts at Thursday's meeting will be an important factor for this week, too. Global financial markets have long been suffering from plunging oil prices due to supply gluts by oil producers. Saudi Arabia and Russia on May 15 agreed to extend the agreement on production cuts, which was set to expire this June to next March. Since other countries, including Oman, Venezuela, and Kuwait, are all in the same boat, expectations for this week's meeting are quite high too. However, opposition from some countries, including Iraq, could potentially change the outcome.
All right, thank you so much for that today.
Thank you.
The board of directors at Tokyo-based Lotte Holdings companies say they're standing by their top management chief despite bribery allegations he faces at home, saying they're convinced he can weather the storm. This could be a silver lining for Chairman Shin Dong-bin, who has faced fierce challenges from his elder brother for top leadership of the retail giant. The fourth vote among the board of directors on this matter is set to take place next month. Chairman Shin was indicted without detention by Korean prosecutors last month. They say Shin provided funds worth $6.3 million to government-linked foundations allegedly owned by ousted President Park Geun-hye's longtime confidant Choi Soon-sil as bribes, not donations, as Shin claims. The Tokyo-based company is the holding company of Lotte Group firms in Japan and holds 19% share of Korea's Hotel Lotte Company, the group's holding unit. An overnight computer outage has delayed dozens of flights operated by Korean Air and its budget affiliate Jin Air. Hanjin Group, the holding company of Korean Air, said the survey issue was caused by an electrical failure and was not linked to the recent ransomware cyber attack. The outage resulted in the delay of 39 flights, with websites and mobile services being unavailable for several hours from late Sunday to early Monday before they were restored. All online services offered by Korean Air and other Hanjin Group affiliates are now operating normally. Korea's producer price index has dropped for a second straight month in April due to a fall in the price of chemical and metal products. The index slid 0.1% from March compared to the same period last year. The index was up 4%. The index for agricultural goods saw a 0.8% decrease, with items like cabbage, onions, and tomatoes suffering drops of over 15%. Commodities fell 0.9% due to a decrease in demand from China, while falling raw material prices caused prices of metal products to drop. Korea's exports recorded notable on-year growth in the first quarter of this year. And for a closer look into the numbers that are keeping Seoul competitive among the world's top 10 exporters, we turn to our Lee Ju-young.
According to the latest data from the World Trade Organization, South Korea's exports in the first quarter of 2017 amounted to $132 billion, almost a 15% increase from the same period last year. This puts Korea in 6th place in terms of volume and number 1 on the list in terms of on-year growth for the first quarter. China's Q1 exports rose by 8.2% on-year, while the same figure for the U.S. rose by 7.3%. Meanwhile, for the world's 71 main trading countries, average growth in Q1 came to 9.8%. 64 countries, or about 90% of the lot, saw positive growth in the first quarter. Experts from the Korea International Trade Association say that the latest growth in Korea's export revenue was driven by an increase in both the quantity of exports and unit price. But they note that the bigger role was played by the jump in unit price. They also downplayed the influence of a potential base effect, saying that the on-year growth in exports parallels an increase in other economic variables such as oil prices and the price of raw materials. Meanwhile, it appears that Korea's surge in exports is having a positive impact on the nation's general economy as well. According to data released by the Bank of Korea in late April, the country's GDP in Q1 had grown by 0.9% compared to the previous quarter, surpassing market expectations of 0.7 to 0.8%. Industry experts believe that the nation's annual expected GDP growth rate will also continue on an upward trajectory from its current 2.6%, thanks to the high likelihood the new Moon administration will pursue new fiscal spending to boost employment. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Japan's exports rose again in April, marking the fifth straight month of gains. Increased overseas demand for shipments of semiconductors and steel are expected to underpin steady economic recovery. Out shipments rose by 7.5% from a year ago, missing the finance ministry's median estimate of 7.8% annual growth. Japan's trade surplus with the U.S. narrowed by 4.2%, marking the third consecutive month of decline. This was despite exports to the U.S. increasing 2.6% due to larger shipments of cars and auto parts. While exports continue to grow, there are concerns over how U.S. President Donald Trump's protectionist pledges will affect future growth. But the recent trade surplus drop could challenge Trump's criticism of Japan's trade practices. Asian trade ministers met on Monday to discuss the mega trade pact RCEP backed by China, putting it back in the spotlight after the U.S. withdrew from another major trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. The regional comprehensive economic partnership includes 10 ASEAN nations and 6 other major Asian economies, including Korea, Japan, China, and India. The Monday meeting followed intense discussions over the weekend at the first meeting of trade ministers from APEC since U.S. President Trump's shift to his America First policy. Members of the TPP, which doesn't include China, agreed to pursue the deal despite Trump's decision to abandon it in favor of bilateral deals. The RCEP and TPP are not mutually exclusive, and many countries would be members of both. The biggest difference between the two is China's participation in RCEP. With U.S. policy shifts and its own Belt and Road Initiative, China has been recently extending its regional trade dominance. The Hong Kong property market has been hot for some time, coming in as the world's most expensive housing market for the 7th year in a row. But what many are calling a bubble is also leaving many locals out of living space. Our Eunice Kim has more.
Earlier this month, Hong Kong's property market was noted as elbowing London's to become the world's top market for luxury homes. But it's news that means little to Lee Swet-wen, a single mother who's among some 200,000 Hong Kong residents who live in partitioned shoebox apartments, also infamously dubbed as coffin homes.
The place is too crowded. The 2 children have no space to play. If it were more spacious, they could go to different sides of the flat and they would argue less. Our home is too small that they fight over this and fight over that. If there's a day off, the 2 of them will argue.
She pays $580 for the space, which eats up nearly half of her monthly pay from decorating cakes. The young mother is concerned where she will go from here as property prices continue to soar on the back of cash flooding in from mainland China.
As everyone knows, for some time, housing has been a troubling problem for Hong Kong. I have pledged to assist Hong Kongers to attain home ownership and improve their living conditions. To do so, we need more usable land. The key is to walk out of the gridlock and reach a consensus on how to increase the supply.
If we cannot solve the housing problem, there will be more social problems, and social tension will be increased, and and people, they're getting more annoyed with government's policy.
And it won't be an easy solution, as some 30% of Hong Kong's 7 million residents already live in public housing. Another 300,000 people are on the waiting list, where the average wait is 4.7 years. Living in a territory in which the government already controls half of the total supply, public housing is still the only hope for the likes of Chen Geng-kao and his wife, who live in illegal huts dubbed slums in the sky.
The rooftop huts will be demolished. My income is low and the flats out on the market are very expensive. I cannot afford that. I won't be able to pay for meals after paying the rent.
Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Recently, mobile bike share apps have brought China's dwindling tally of bicycles roaring back, once again filling the streets with cyclists. With high competition and floods of bicycles, our Elliot Kim takes a look at how the situation is playing out.
With streets flooded with bikes during peak hours and train stations piled high with them, China's bike share companies are in fierce competition with one another. For just 15 cents, you can grab a bike and go, picking it up and dropping it off wherever you please. Like in many other consumer industries, mobile bike share app companies are looking to pounce on China's increasingly mobile-savvy consumers. OFO, known for its trademark yellow bikes, is now worth over $1 billion and has expanded to 100 cities worldwide since starting in 2014. 70 of the cities were added this year alone. With already over 20 million users, OFO has started pilot schemes in Singapore, the UK, and the US. It hopes to help reshape urban infrastructure in Chinese cities.
We hope that for the future of the city's development process, planning will no longer be centered on small cars. Instead, we want it to be more like Copenhagen or Amsterdam, like Northern European countries.
One of OFO's main competitors, Mobike, initially planned to reach 100 cities by the end of this year, but it's speeding up those plans. It now looks to add 10 million bikes this year, while OFO has plans to add 15 million to its current count of 5 million.
Because in China, when a lot of industries take off, they're really hot, so it's a battle for companies to promote their product, and they call our industry a bike war. Basically, in this process, it will only be those who make the quality products the users need that will remain.
Retail analysts are unsure of how companies will be able to separate themselves from the competition. As Ben Cavender of China's Market Research Group points out, there's nothing that really differentiates any of these companies, so it's hard to say anybody is really doing a better job. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.